Hello and welcome to part 10 of my tutorial series on how to program the Kurzweil PC3. Okay, so up till now we've talked a lot about starting with the ALG page and working with everything that comes after the key map. So what I want to talk about today is the Keymap page. So let's go ahead and go there. The Keymap page really is kind of the heart and soul of the instrument in a lot of ways, especially if you're somebody who plays gigs and needs to use sort of bread and butter sounds like pianos and organs, electric pianos, and what have you. So the Keymap page is very important for because this is where you pick which samples are mapped across the keyboard. It allows you to, and I should note here that a key map really is more of a collection of samples than any particular single sample. For instance, this is piano forte left. So what you have here is a multi-sample piano across the whole keyboard, and that collection of multi-samples is what is called a key map. Okay, so when working with key maps, there's actually quite a bit you can do that's very fun if you want to go above and beyond just sort of the normal sounds. First of all, I'm going to go ahead here and go to the amp page, turn off velocity tracking because that'll make it this easier to hear. Okay, so let me go through some of the parameters, or all the parameters on this page, and kind of explain what they do and how they can be used for creatively manipulating samples. You know, at its heart, many of the Kurzweil keyboards are sample instruments. They're based on samples. They're made to manipulate samples. The old K2000, that was really one of its main things. Now, it had DSP oscillators, of course, but a lot of people really used it as a sample playback device. And so the PC3 series retains a lot of that character. So there's a lot that you can do synthesis-wise with samples on the PC3. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through some of these parameters, and I'm going to go use some different key maps and kind of show you some of the fun things that you can do just with key maps. Okay, so first of all, you have the stereo selection here. So with stereo off, you have one key map. With stereo on, you have two. When you have stereo on, by the way, your sound is taking up 2 notes of polyphony. Okay, so the PC3 has 128 notes of polyphony. So with this turned on, each layer in your program is going to be that has stereo on, and your layers can have different settings for this parameter. It's not like it's not global or anything like that. But anyways, each layer that has stereo on is using 2 notes of polyphony. Okay, so for instance, right now I have Keymap 1 at piano forte left, and I just called this up and it put 110 stereo strings as my Keymap 2. So that's very rough sort of, you know, layering of piano and strings. Not really layered either. One's coming out of the left speaker, one's coming out of the right speaker. Okay, so that's what stereo does. Let's go ahead now and move on to some of the more fun things. Okay, expose. Expose or transpose shifts the whole key map up and down the keyboard and doesn't modify the pitch. So for instance, let me play C4 here. Okay, turn this up a little bit, and I'm going to go through this. Okay, that would be the note that would normally be 36 steps up on the keyboard, but now it's been shifted down to C4. Same thing here. This is the note that would have been 24 keys below C4 has now been shifted up to C4. So with expose, you can move a key map around on the keyboard. You know, like for instance, I have a PC361, and you know there are some notes that a piano can play that I'm not going to be able to get to on this keyboard. Of course, I can transpose just when I'm playing a program, but let's say, for instance, I want something that just uses the lower octaves of the piano, then it's easy enough to create a program that uses it here. Not only that, but this can be used creatively because we can keep going down and down and down to minus 128 steps. So if I play the highest note on my keyboard now, okay, you can't hear that. I can hear it. There's a very, very faint rumble, which I'm sure has all sorts of fun low-frequency harmonics in it. But you can basically take a sample and turn it into an LFO for all intents and purposes, because it's going to be going at that slow. The sample playback rate is going to be so slow that you're below the audible frequency. Okay, so that can be useful for lots of different things and making fun sound effects. Now, one of my favorite parameters to mess with on the Keymap page is timbre shift or timbre shift. So what this does is this preserves the pitch. Okay, now remember with Expose, when I changed that parameter, the samples basically shifted underneath the keys on the keyboard. Timbre shift is going to do the same thing, or sorry, timbre shift is going to do the same thing, but what it's going to also do is change the pitch. So when I play C4, it's going to maintain the pitch as C4. Okay, so now I'm playing the sample route that would have been 43 keys above C4 on C4 and at the pitch of C4. And so you can get these very, let me turn that up. You get this sort of really cool kind of ghostly sound with the piano key map. Different key maps respond in different ways. For instance, let me pick a key map that this is a drum kit. Okay, so now timbre shift. Is fun because in as much as those samples have a root key, it's going to modify that root key according to timbre shift as it shifts those samples down. So this is some sound that's 50 keys above C4 playing back at and all the other sounds have been similarly affected. So I can do some really radical kind of fun things because of how far down I'm shifting the pitch of the sample. Okay, let me show you some other fun things though. So for instance, so that's with like a drum key map. Let's take a single cycle waveform like a sawtooth. Okay, let's do. So with the sawtooth, I'm taking a sample that's much higher up on the keyboard, shifting it down, playing it back at the pitch C4. So it's playing back at a much lower pitch. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm lowering the sample rate because I'm lowering the sample playback rate of that sample. So something that might have been sampled, say at 48 kilohertz, has now been shifted down. Say if I go like to minus 24. It's been cut in half twice, so that's let's see, 48, 24, 12. So this would be like a 12 kilohertz playback rate, and so it's kind of cool because you can get these different, hence why it's called timbre shift. You get these different sort of timbres out of the sounds because you're using samples and you're playing them back at a lower sample rate, and as you do that, sounds degrade in fun ways and all sorts of cool things. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on here. Key track is pretty simple. Let's go back to the piano key map. Okay, 100 cents per key. Obviously, you're going to get a regular scale, so let's go something weird like 62 cents. So now you have, a very sort of out of tune piano sound, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's set that back to 100. Velocity track is the same thing, where I can link the pitch to velocity. So let's put it up at about 90 cents, so it's very obvious. This can be nice if you have a sample. Let's say, for instance, that you, let's see here, let's do this. Let's go ahead and let's grab a drum sample, or drum key map. We'll go to dry kit again. So let's see what happens here. Let's put this up to about Oh yeah, let's go up to 600 cents or something. Okay, now my keyboard skills are completely non-existent, so. But that would be an easy way to get, say for instance, tom sounds that change pitch depending on how hard you hit the drum. And with some drums, that's very accurate, or that's relatively accurate to how they respond in real life. If you hit them harder, sometimes the pitch goes up a bit. Probably not 600 cents, but you know, you can emulate things like that by assigning pitch to velocity on this page. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Now, let's talk about playback mode. Let's go back to, let's see here. Let me pick a different sample route. Let's see, I found one earlier. Oh yeah, here we go, Rhodes Heart. Nice Rhodes piano key map. So let's go ahead and scroll through these. So the first one is normal. The second one is reverse. Okay, so the fun thing about this is obviously it's reversed how the sample is playing back. You'll notice there's attack at the beginning of the sound. Different sounds respond differently, and I'll show you in a couple of minutes about how you can play with that a bit. Okay, bi-directional means it's going to play forward then backwards and forward then backwards. So we get a sound like this. Okay, and this can be a lot of fun with different kinds of key maps. Like if I pick a simple waveform key map, okay, let's put this back up to normal. Now we're going to go reverse. Now that has very unintended consequences, which is cool. Bi-directional. Now see, I'm just playing a major chord there, but the pitches are obviously all thrown off. And that's really kind of fun. Let me take a moment then to show you the final setting here, which is noise. So if you don't want to use a DSP block to generate noise, you have a noise generator here on the Keymap page. Oh, that's loud. So there you go. You can get noise that way. So you can do all sorts of fun things by using combinations of parameters. Let me show you this one. I like this one, where you take a piano, you pitch it down a bit, or you move the sample roots down on the keyboard, and you turn on something like Bi-Direct. Now you might be hearing the distortion there. That's not the PC3 internally. Is distorting a bit, and that's normal. One of the things the PC3 does not do is hold your hand with respect to level. You have to actually go in and adjust levels so that things are easier to work with as far as that goes. So just keep that in mind when you're working with this stuff, and when you start really screwing around with sounds, you can clip things, you can, and sometimes intentionally you want to do that. So the awesome folks at Kurzweil have given you the ability to do that if you want to do it, but that also means that you have the responsibility then to, take that out of the sound if you don't want it to be there. Okay, so let's go down to Alt Control. Let me go ahead and hit this, set all this stuff back to normal. Okay, I'm going to turn this to, let's see here, put it on the mod wheel. Okay, so what Alt Control is within each sample within the PC3, I'll just show you this real quick. Okay, we're going to talk about this in a later video, but this is one of the fun things. You actually can edit samples on the PC3. Okay, this is non-destructive editing, and I'm not going to go into it right now, but with the PC3, you can get a lot more sounds out of it than just what's in the ROM samples because you can mess with these samples. If I go to the trim page, okay, you see this A here, that's the alt control, or the alt start parameter. So it starts at 0, and this is counting in samples. So the alt start is 21,996 samples after the start point of the sound. Okay, so let's exit back out here. Let's see, let's hit no. Okay. So with alt control set to mod wheel, and I'm going to put alt method, I'm going to go from switch to continuous. As I move the mod wheel up, now it might be kind of subtle, I don't know if you heard that or not, but I can change, I'm starting further and further into the sample as I scroll the mod wheel. Now this has some really fun unintended consequences, which I'll get into a bit in a later video when we talk about sample editing on the PC3. Because you can do all sorts of crazy stuff by setting the alt start point to different places within a sample or outside of a sample. But all will be revealed later. Anyway, so this can be a great way to change sounds as well, and you can set this to continuous or to switched. So let's put it back on switched here, and I'll move the mod wheel again. So it just jumps to that alt start point instead of going smoothly to the alt start point. Okay, that covers all the parameters on the Keymap page. I hope that you take some time to explore the Keymap page and mess around with the key maps. There's a whole bunch of them in here. Let's see if we scroll backwards. We start, you know, there are hundreds and hundreds of key maps in here to play with, and there's all sorts of sounds that are just waiting to be discovered, hidden in there, both by messing with them here on the Keymap page and by messing with them at the Keymap and sample levels. Okay, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.